something that, it's been bothering me for a couple of years, and they've tried to get this right. They've tried to change it. Got all the booth reviews and everything else. There doesn't even need to be a flag. The NFL's got the taunting rule, and that I think is ridiculous. It's their first year, and I think it's been way over adjudicated. For college football, it's the targeting, and it's gotten to the point now where you think it's targeting, they don't call it, they review it. Sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't. Then you see plays where like the guy had no other alternative or option, hits a guy in the head, and you're like, okay, what is this? It's 15-yard penalty. Oh, by the way, you're booted out. Then you've got, situations that happen where, an offensive player lowers his head. And you're like, have they ever called offensive targeting on an offensive guy? Maybe. I have that conversation with my dad. He's like, running backs, they always lower their head. They ever get called for targeting? Well, not really. It's kind of not what they're trying to legislate out of the game. It's mostly been the defensive players. And I understand receivers coming over the middle, guys lining them up, going and blasting guys like that. There's no place for that anymore of just going to be headhunters back in the day. And everyone loves the Jack Tatums of the world, guys going, the Steve Atwaters, John Lynch, all these headhunting safeties that used to just cruise the middle of the field and go try to bite people's heads off with a football. Back in the day, some of the guys, the Raiders, Ronnie Living, the Niners, they're taping like little 1x4s on their forearms. You got these sweet forearm wrist tapes. Little did you know underneath, they got a piece of wood that they're going through and just trying to crack skulls with them. And so obviously we found out that's not safe. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to grow the game. And you can get people to continue to let their children play football, which, by the way, my oldest son plays tackle, and my other two boys will eventually. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it if that's what they want to do. I believe football is one of the greatest games for teaching self-reliance, teamwork, selflessness, toughness, like all of the things in the world that we need. Like outside of getting them in the military, the football field is really one of the few places that you can find it, because it's a big team game. There's 11 guys on the field, 11 guys each side of the ball. You have special teams. There's guys who have to bust their butt, who have really no chance of ever realistically scoring in a game, but they are just as crucial as the guy who has the ball in their hand. And so you have to learn to kind of sacrifice to yourself. And if you are the star, you have to learn how to be humble, show humility, show class, give respect to your teammates, understand that you're not getting it done without them. And so that's my football soapbox for a moment. But back to the targeting. I believe this thing could be solved up and summed up in two ways. I understand that you're going to have to call penalties. And I understand that it's a big deal and that it's important we keep our young people safe, our young men safe. But to eject somebody from the game for a normal football play, I think is where it crosses the line. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and this is something, that I look at. I'm not saying that it's my original. I'd like to think I thought of it. A lot of other people have kind of concurred with me. I don't think it's something that I'm unique, I guess, in thinking that this is the way it should be legislated. Every targeting, you want to throw a flag, have a penalty for it, great. 15 yards. Whether we think it's a true targeting or not, I'm okay. I can live with that. It impacts the game, but it's not so overly punitive on the individual. I think there should be two types of targeting. Obviously that, where it's a 15-yarder, you look at it, okay, this wasn't intentional. We'll move on. For an ejection, I think two things need to occur. Number one, it needs to be egregious and malicious. And if you want to sit back there and say, well, there's a lot of ambiguity in that, it's going to be tough to kind of draw lines around that and say, what is it? Well, trying to judge contact to the head or neck area, there's a lot of ambiguity in that now too. I mean, we've so far passed the line. It's the same with pass interference and everything else. It's a subjective call. But I reference back with the Supreme Court and child pornography. You know it when you see it. You can identify when someone's out there headhunting. They have the opportunity to take a different course or path, and they choose one to try to light somebody up with their skull, lowering the crown of their helmet. Everybody knows what that looks like. And if you want to err on the side of that, I'm okay with that too. I think that that's fine. Eject them. That's all right. They know the rules. They're choosing to disobey them and to break them. And so to me, that's no different than hitting a guy when he's walking back to the huddle, because I don't think you need to deem that a normal football play anymore. You can romanticize it. I can say I'd like to see it, but it's not going to happen. We're not going to go back to that era. So, okay, got it. That's an ejection. The second one, the habitual line stepper. We'll go back to little Dave Chappelle show, little Rick James, habitual line stepping. And if you're someone that has 2 infractions, and maybe neither of them are malicious or egregious, but if you have 2 infractions in a game, then we can say that's cause for ejection. Because I haven't seen really times where, and I know guys get ejected after 1, but you see it happen that often. And so unless somebody continues to do it that way, it may not be egregious or malicious, but they need to make sure that's tried to coach out of them. Sometimes it's unavoidable. And so I'm going to give everybody the out for the sometime. You get 2 in a game, it's like 2 technicals, 2 yellow cards in soccer, whatever it is. Then you're getting the boot. You get 2 targetings, you get 1 free one, 15 yards, second one, you're gone. Unless it's malicious. I think that clears it up a lot. And you don't have this competitive imbalance or this massive swing that happens when someone gets kicked out. I'm sitting here watching the Indiana UC game. Like both of the schools, I feel like I wanted both of them to win. Cincinnati's struggling in the run game a little bit. All of a sudden, the star middle linebacker, who's kind of the heartbeat of that Indiana defense in McFadden, he gets a targeting call, and I'm like, all right, he hit Ritter up high, Cincinnati's quarterback. It's kind of getting ping-ponged around in the pocket. I didn't think it was something that he was like targeting, like maliciously going after. There was an intent there. So it's 15 yards. It's a first down. It keeps the drive alive for Cincinnati. You stay in the game. But he gets pulled out. All of a sudden, Cincinnati starts running the ball. And maybe that was just a shot in the arm they needed. And maybe it was coincidence, and they would have started playing better anyway. But we'll never know that. And that's the problem. Whether, it's Sean Wade in the Fiesta Bowl against Clemson getting kicked out a couple years ago for hitting Trevor Lawrence, or whether it's, Clemson's middle linebacker getting kicked out of the Fiesta Bowl last year against Ohio State. Like, I don't want to see either one of them. I want to see guys play football if they're trying to do it the right way. And like I said, you give them the 15-yarder, but you don't need the ejection unless it's happening once. Repeat offenders, folks. That's why there's penalties that are steeper in our judicial system for repeat offenders. That's how it works. Okay, so you can have good intentions, but if you repeat, okay, then you're gone. But that won't make it overly punitive where guys are getting the boot, because that's no good for anybody, and I don't think it's good for the game.